Today I'm in Grape Creek, North Carolina. It's below Murphy, North Carolina, community of Grape Creek. And I'm going to talk a while with Johnny Robertson. His family and my family go way back. And he's going to tell us about life. And he's just a storehouse of knowledge when it comes to the history of this area. Everything from, community-wise and things, the way things used to be, to even old relics and things like that. And he also has a real strong connection, of course, to the Cherokee Indians, so he can talk about that. But Johnny, let's just start with maybe tell about where you was, when you was born and kind of your family life, your mom and dad, and maybe siblings if you had siblings and that sort of thing.
Okay, we'll start with my family first come in this area in 1812. There was 3 brothers and they married 3 Indian sisters, and everybody was double first cousins. So that's how the Indian heritage came in. In the 1800s, part of them left voluntarily in 1832 and went to Fort Smith, Arkansas. Okay, during the forced removal, part of them went to Oklahoma. Some of them stayed here. They got their self-declared North Carolina citizens, and you could not move them. And that's how the Indian ancestry come along. And I'm an enrolled member of the tribe, and my kids are first descendants.
Did you have your mother and father, were they farmers, or did your mom stay home, or what about that kind of stuff in your childhood?
In my childhood, my daddy, he cut logs, timber, had a truck, he hauled lumber and helped move people, anything that you could do with a truck. And my first memory of what my mother did, she was a clerk at the Culberson post office. They give the post office test, and they wouldn't hire her because they had a height requirement. But the postmaster had a little box, and she scooped that box around and stand on it to work the boxes on the top.
Oh, goodness.
But they wouldn't give her the job. So, and then she went for the selective service system. And then we moved in the house that my daddy built, and I grew up there.
Was that in Grape Creek, or where was that?
This is in Culberson.
Culberson, okay.
That's where I grew up.
Okay.
I ended up in Grape Creek with me and my first wife married. Their family lived just right over the road over here.
So Culberson, recently me and Johnny both was at a birthday party, and I overheard Johnny telling my brother about Culberson back in the day, and this would be more interest, of course, to local folks, but today Culberson is just a community, more or less. I mean, it's got a community center there, but it's not, you wouldn't think of it as a town by no means, or even like a bustling place, but in days gone by, it was.
The railroad first came into Cherokee County through Culberson. People from Murphy would take a wagon and get on the train at Culberson and go to Atlanta or whatever. Culberson actually had a hotel. My daddy bid on the building down at the depot. We tore it down when I was a kid. But they had a freight agent sell tickets. When my mother and daddy moved to Culberson right after World War II, she bought a train ticket and rode to Blue Ridge and back on a passenger train. And she got lost in Blue Ridge. But along this time, I was born, and I'm the only child. And we moved to the house that my daddy built, and it was right above where the depot is. And across from my house, they had 3 railroad houses, and that's where the employees of the Atlanta Railroad lived, and they maintained the track. But now that's all gone, but there's 2 of them houses that is still left down there where people bought them and moved them. But that's train run down there 6 nights a week. The train would come through and they go to Murphy. They pull the freight back to Culberson, and they pull down there. And a lot of times they block the railroad avenue. Culberson was laid out in a town. It's got streets and lots. It had a mayor at one time. But anyway, they'd pull up there, and the train crew would get out, and Frank Myers would open the store up, and they'd go buy whatever. Usually it was armloads of cigarettes, because the tax was cheaper in North Carolina it was Georgia. And I don't know how far down L&N tracks that them bootleg cigarettes went.
Goodness.
Had a wood yard down there. And they had like 4 stores operating at one time. Had a shoe shop. And the word that I have heard the last time that the courthouse burned in Murphy, that they were serious talk about moving the county seat to Culberson. There was so much going. If you lived down 64 or over towards Blairsville, you took and come to Culberson in a T-model or a wagon and picked your freight up in Culberson. And when I was little, Frank Byers had the store, and you really didn't have to go to Murphy for anything. You could get it right there at Culberson.
Such a different time. And for people that are not familiar with our area, after you leave the Culberson community, you basically go into the state of Georgia. So that's why the talking about Blue Ridge and Blairsville, both in Georgia, and then this talking about the buying the cheap cigarettes. That was,
well, Frank Byers was his first store coming into North Carolina on Highway 60. And he was the last one going back towards Georgia. So he was in the right place at the right time. But the state tax got about the same, and that finally went away.
amazing to for locals like me and you, but to look back and think about that Culberson. What if it had ended up being the county seat?
Well, one thing why it wasn't, it was too close to the state line. From where the post office is today in Culberson, you go about a quarter of a mile or so, and you're in Georgia. So, but now there was a lawsuit over that at one time, and they said a lot of people say that the state line should be a mile north of actually where it is, and that starts at Charlotte and goes all the way to the Tennessee line. It's supposed to be a mile off, and they had lawsuits over it, and it actually went to the Supreme Court one time.
Wow. So when you grew up there in Culberson, you went to school, I guess. Was there a Culberson school, or did you go to Ranger? Or
I missed going to Culberson school about 2 years. And the first school that I went to was Ranger. And I came to Murphy in the 7th grade and finished there. My mother had a job up there, and I rode back and forth with her, so I had transportation. But when I went to Ranger, if you were high school age, you had your choice of going to Hiawassee Dam or coming on to Murphy. But if you lived at the Tennessee line and you rode the bus to Ranger, I mean, it was easier really to go on to Murphy. But when they rezoned the schools or made everybody move back in their district or whatever, that went away. And the first year that I went to school, my daddy drove the school bus. He had back trouble and he couldn't. And finally, he went into the dump truck business.
so when you graduated from Murphy, then what? I guess you went through high school, and then what was the next part of your life?
Well, I worked up at, it would have been Magdabox at the time. And then I went into the Army, and I was in the Army. I went to Vietnam, and then I went to Germany too. And then I got out of the Army, and I worked for the State Forest Service a while. And then I went in business for myself, and I retired there.
So your business for yourself, tell us about that.
Well, it first started as a radiator shop. I traded a piece of property for it, and then I took and bought the service station there in town where I retired from. And I spent about 45 years in business for myself in the radiator shop and the service station. And I made a decent living, a lot of hours.
Yeah, if you're a local person, you definitely would remember you were just like a landmark, I guess, if you will, in Murphy, in downtown Murphy.
Well, when I first started business there, I had World War I veterans trading with me.
Yeah.
And then they all died off and went away. Then it became World War II. And I don't know, about like 3 World War II veterans left in Cherokee County now. And they tell me that there's not but 3 left in the eastern band of Cherokee Indians. And one of them is Fred Lunsford at Marble. And he'll be 99, I think, this month.
Yeah. And then so you did that though for 45 years. Like I said, you were just, I can just hear my daddy in my head, take it down to Johnny's, talk about my car, stop down there at Johnny's and get, yeah.
Well, I tried not to do anything that I figured I couldn't do a good job on. If I figured I couldn't handle it, I just wouldn't do it. Because you don't want to go down that road if you
No,
keep from it.
and that's probably why you were so successful, why people held you in high esteem always, yeah.
And then me and my first wife, we'd been married about 15 years, and she died. And like I said, I had a 5-year-old and a 12-year-old. And a lot of people said, I don't know how you made it with them kids. Well, that's one thing that kept me sane. And then I had death and a divorce is two different things. A lot of times in a divorce, everybody's mad at you from the other side of the family. Well, that wasn't the case. Me and my in-laws was all on good terms, and my mother and daddy was still around, and they was able to help me some too. So, you know, it worked out all right. And then me and Peggy, we've been married 22 years now. And I knew her back in high school days. And but she's got 3 kids, and I've got 2. And I've got 1 grandchild, and she's got, what, 7?
Oh, goodness.
7 grandchildren and great-grandchildren.
Yeah, yeah. That's a nice family, though.
Yeah. But getting back to Culberson there, back when I grew up there, see, that was a pretty good little town. And I remember, I remember the people, but I don't remember talking to this lady about this. But she would have been maybe 90 years old when I was little. But she was telling a neighbor up there, me and him was talking about her one day. She said she could remember reading about Jesse James in her newspaper.
Wow.
She was that old. And, but that house is gone. There's not but, I think, 2 houses left down there, or no, 3. It's still there when I was a kid.
So is that right around where their community center is today? Is that the general area of where it would be, and their post office, or?
If you're at the post office,
Yeah.
you turn there, and that's where the main part of Culberson was. And running beside where the railroad tracks used to be before they took them up, that's Railroad Avenue, what they call it now. And see, that was the main part of town. See, they had 2 churches there on the hill, the Baptist church, and I can remember the Methodist church there, but I don't ever remember the service in it. And I've been told that the Church of God had a church out there. A.J. Thomason that founded the Church of God. That's Fields of the Woods crowd. The church was formed in the old Watson house down there that's falling down now. And he wrote in his diary that the people in Culberson were so ungodly they wouldn't accept God.
Oh, gosh.
And I can remember the tail end of that bunch, or, you know, the part of him he's talking about. But they run him out of town, and he ended up down there somewhere around Fields of the Woods and established that. But he wanted to start a church and orphanage there, but that didn't work out at Culberson.
When you think about those times, like at Culberson, when you lived there, when you think about your life, what's your first memory? Do you remember being at home maybe, or something that impressed you, or?
I can remember a little bit of where we lived across from my grandparents there before my daddy built the house. I can remember moving in the house that I grew up in. And somewhere a little later, that's when my daddy quit hauling wood and stuff and went into the dump truck business. And Mineral Bluff down there had a rock quarry at the time, and that's where he hauled the rock and stuff out of. But Glen Ormby, well, the Shields is down there. They had a wood yard and they had a store, and they'd pay you for part of the load of wood, and then they'd give you a due bill, and you'd have to go over and take the rest of it out of the store with a due bill. And Glen Ormby, he took it over after that, and he'd write you a check, and if you wanted a check cashed, you went over to his store.
Had it figured out, didn't they?
Well, everybody done it. Even in Murphy it was done. And but anyway, Ronald Shore ended up with a wood yard. And when the railroad went out, that stopped the 5-foot lengths. You didn't buy that no more to put on a rail car. But they bought these other trailers that you could put 5-foot stuff on. And then finally that went away, and people, they either hauled it all the way to Bowater, or they took the wood like Murphy up there, and they had pole trailers that they hauled it on. But eventually Bowater, you know, it's closed down, has been for 4 or 5 years. And then when Champion Paper went out at Canton, that done that in.
Yeah, so that was wood for pulpwood for making paper.
Right.
Both, yeah. And that was a big driving industry in our area. I know my Papa Wade, he done some of that, and I guess Daddy did way back in the day. But pulpwood was probably not just for this area, but like you said, to feed into Bowater or Champion was a big economic force for people in our area.
Tennessee Copper Company at Copper Hill, that was a union crowd. And every now and then they'd go out on strike. And I reckon everybody down there had a little old farm and a ton truck. And when they go out on strike, they start cutting pulpwood. And I could remember them having a line of trucks. I know it was over 1/8 of a mile long, waiting to get into the wood yard at Culberson to get the wood off. And but that's how they made a little extra money when they was on strike.
Yeah, and then other people like my Papa Wade, that's just sustained them, along with farming, of course, to feed themselves. But
well, if you had a truck, even if you wasn't working at Copper Hill, you'd take that truck and you'd haul a little wood every now and then and get you enough money to buy groceries and pay your taxes and whatever you needed it for. And my brother-in-law said they cut wood and sent his sister to college.
well, yeah. I don't know about the logging business today. Is there many people? Of course, the pulpwood now's gone, like you said, but there's not as much.
Well, you take one outfit logging, they could probably do what 25 people could do back then. Just one, you know, like 3 or 4 people. I mean, they could move as much timber products.
Yeah.
But Culberson, another thing that happened down there one time, it's sort of interesting. Somebody wrote in the Asheville Citizen about the lawless little town at Culberson, and about all them hanging down there drinking and having drag races all the time. Well, I went home one night and me and my mother were sitting on the front porch watching the drag races. My daddy had been to some kind of a rescue squad meeting, I think at Waynesville. He just got in the driveway and they surrounded him. And they blocked the roads and everything else. And Arthur Nichols over there, he had a cornfield right next to it that about tore it down, trampled it down running. And they hauled cars all night. But I always thought how funny it would have been if my daddy had got caught right up in the middle.
If he'd have been like an innocent person, but they thought, well, you're out here too.
But I mean, there it was in the paper.
Yeah.
And nobody didn't have sense enough to stay away.
Oh, I guess they thought Asheville's too far away to affect us. I wonder, was it like local officials that come, or was it state people, or maybe a combination?
Yeah, there's so many of them down there.
Yeah.
Deputy Sheriff's Highway Patrol.
Oh, goodness.
And see, Fannin County was out on it too.
Yeah.
And they blocked them off
from that way.
side.
Yeah. So that had to be that was big news, big doings back then.
Oh, they had a sign up down there. I did have a picture of that sign. It said Culberson International Raceway, racing every Friday and Saturday night. They stole the sign somewhere and put that up. A bunch of boys had.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. I wonder if they ever got their cars back, if they had to pay fines or something.
Well, some of them got the cars confiscated. And I think they sold them in auction.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And but a lot of them, you know, they just hauled it in. I remember one man over there, his son was driving the car. And one guy that was in the record business at Murphy, he had them stacked up from his business plumb out to the highway and had the record blocking them so nobody couldn't get them out.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah. But they said they hauled cars nearly all night.
I guess those sent a strong message. No more drag racing.
Well, they had to. had one killed down there.
Oh, goodness.
And but anyway, that gets the car racing out the
Yeah.
picture.
I guess that, use an old word, that they put the quietus on the, on the car racing.
Well, at that time, they might have had maybe 2 highway patrolmen in Cherokee County, and maybe 2 deputy sheriffs. And I mean, you can't work 24/7 all the time.